devoted to improving the lives and prospects of children and families. For 35 years, we've conducted high-quality, rigorous research and communicated research findings, implications, and recommendations to the public, practitioners, researchers, and policymakers. We have an established history of research projects that inform healthy marriage and healthy relationships research, evaluation, and practice agendas. And for more than 10 years, Child Trends has worked with experts in the field to conceptualize and measure multiple aspects of healthy marriages and healthy relationships for diverse populations, including married and unmarried couples, low-income couples, and youth. We were also a partner on the Supporting Healthy Marriage Evaluation, where we played a key role in developing the outcome constructs and measures used in the evaluation. Well, building on this past work, we are pleased to present the products from the Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education Models and Measures project. The goal for this work was to conceptualize and provide measurement recommendations for the next generation of healthy marriage and relationship education programs. Our webinar agenda is as follows: an overview of OFA Healthy Marriage Relationship Education Programs, an overview of our project and its goals, a description of measure identification and development as a process, an introduction of the measures spreadsheets, several sample exercises to highlight the information available, and presentation of the data collection tip sheets, followed by Q&A. Our presenters are Charisse Johnson from the Office of Family Assistance, DHHS, Anna Solmeyer from the Office of Planning, Research, and Evaluation, also DHHS, and Mindy Scott from Child Trends. Now I will turn it over to Charisse Johnson, who will provide an overview of OFA's programs, including their Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education programs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Charisse Johnson, and I'm the branch chief for the HMRF program. My role is to supervise the staff that manage the grants in regards to healthy marriage and responsible fatherhood. But to tell you a little bit more about our program in regards to the first slide, which addresses temporary assistance for needy families. That is the funding source in which gives us the authorization and provides the resources for us to have the Healthy Marriage and Responsible Fatherhood program. This particular funding exists within the Office of Family Assistance. And as you can see on the slide, the focus of the Office of Family Assistance is really about supporting families. We do what we do in order to support the TANF goals, and you will see here assisting needy families so that children can be cared for in their own homes, reducing the dependency of needy parents, and also preventing out-of-wedlock pregnancies. And we work hard with the HMRF program to meet many of the goals, the 4 goals mentioned in the TANF purposes, as well as goals that have been legislated in regards to healthy marriage and responsible fatherhood. The unique piece about TANF is that it actually is a block grant to states, tribes, and territories, as well as our discretionary grant programs in which healthy marriage and responsible fatherhood are included in discretionary grants. Next slide. Now I would like to tell you a little bit about our Healthy Marriage and Responsible Fatherhood and our programs. The Claims Resolution Act of 2010, as you can see on the slide, allocated money for us to be able to put out discretionary grants in the amounts of $75 million for healthy marriage, as well as $75 million for responsible fatherhood grants. And what you will find is that a part of this responsible fatherhood grant also serves reentry grantees. Currently, we have 121 grantees that were funded in 2011, and these grantees exist in community agencies, they exist in community nonprofit agencies, in hospitals, universities, and state agencies, etc. The main thing is that we find that we have grants in 47 states, and they are in an array of community-based programs in order to meet the unique needs of families. In general, all of our grants, Healthy Marriage and Responsible Fatherhood, really focus on comprehensive healthy relationships and marriage education, as well as responsible parenting and opportunities for employment through job and career advancement activities. Next slide. Just to share a little bit more about healthy marriage and relationship education specific, we find that many of our grantees serve low-income families, families that may not typically have access to these type of services in which they participate voluntarily. You know, there are no mandates for parents to participate or families to come, but it's really about identifying a need and having a community resource to support you in meeting those needs. The activities authorized under Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education are very specific, but they're really designed to make sure we reach all aspects of developing positive and healthy relationships. You will see highlighted in this slide education in high schools, marriage and relationship education skills, which we call MRES. The main focus of this is how do we promote marriage, but how do we help families and individuals make decisions about, you know, healthy relationships, making good choices around what needs to happen in a family, what needs to happen as an individual as you prepare to be in healthy relationships. And we find that that is a different approach, that is an expanded approach of supporting or encouraging healthy marriage, but also healthy relationships to make sure our communities and our families are healthier. Next slide. You see the outcomes listed for the next generation of healthy marriage responsible education grantees. There's a big focus on knowledge acquisition, skill development, and really we hope to see behavior change. In the new generation of healthy marriage and relationship education, we will still focus on encouraging marriage, but we also have a bigger focus on relationship education. And you can see that we do that, again, through skills around just healthy relationships, improving parenting skills, as well as working with individuals to think about how they can attain employment through making good decisions and planning. Our youth development piece, and which is the focus of much of the work that happens through the center, is what can we do today to support our youth as they grow and develop and set goals and make decisions, and how can we prepare them for that? We believe that we can reach those long-term outcomes of improved family functioning, improved adult and child well-being by really starting to work with young people in high school to try to help them to think about how they make decisions. We hope that through these services that we help individuals grow and develop, we have stronger communities, and that we're really able to impact society in a way in which we have youth and young people and families that are stronger and better able to take care of their needs and take care of their families. Next slide. The next slide really talks about our high school youth. Since 2012, we've served approximately 122,273 youth in our program. We've across the country in the grants, and we've found that they talk about the value of marriage and healthy relationships. They talk about peer relationships. They talk about relationships between the high school student and their parents and other authority figures. They talk about budgeting, coping, making choices, goal setting, all of that to help them to really be able to have the tools and the information necessary to grow and mature into healthy adults and be able to take care of their basic needs and just being able to negotiate life in a positive way. Next slide. A little bit more about the Responsible Fatherhood Program. The Responsible Fatherhood Program is really there to ensure that there are opportunities for fathers to be a part of their child's growth and development and learn the skills necessary to be a positive father, to be able to engage with that child in a positive way, to improve the relationships, especially with complex families, and to also be able to contribute to the health and well-being of themselves as well as their children and their families through improved employment and economic opportunity that hopefully will support economic mobility. And just as a side, you know, the benefit of having both the Healthy Marriage and the Responsible Fatherhood Program and looking at them separately but also together is that we get to learn from both fields. And we get to learn and share information with the Fatherhood Program in regards to what does it take to have healthy relationships, what does it take to start those conversations with a mom that you may be co-parenting with. You know, what does it take to develop the skills to be a good employee and really be able to meet the financial needs of your family. Next slide. As we talk about fatherhood, you'll see on the next slide we really talk about the short-term and long-term outcomes that we hope to reach. Just as what we stated with as I stated with the Healthy Marriage Program, we really want to work with communities, and the grantees do a great job, and we hope that the next generation would do an even better job in really thinking about healthy relationships and marriage skills, making sure that fathers have opportunity to engage with their children in a developmentally appropriate way, and really think about ways in which fathers have access to resources to get jobs so that they can support their family And of course, because we do have the reentry part of this work, we want to reduce situations in which there's incarceration. And that's by reducing recidivism. And we believe that sometimes through employment, family support, and the skills necessary to engage and communicate with people, we'll be able to reach many of those short-term outcomes. In regards to the long-term outcomes, we just believe over time we hope to see that families will be stronger and individuals will be strong and be able to contribute to the needs of themselves as well as their children. What makes this project so exciting, if we can go to the next slide, is that we really have a learning agenda. We really want to learn what it really takes to get good results with our grantee programs. What does it take to really change conditions in regards to our youth and working with complex families? So the learning agenda that we are supported, which OPRE supports us in, is really learning from the HMR field in general as to what works, to really think about how can we use evaluation to tell us, what program designs really can make a difference based on the population that you're serving. We definitely want to build and expand the evidence base in regards to, what type of programs fit what type of populations and what can we learn from that. We want to be able to provide good technical assistance and information to our grantees as well as the field in general. And we want to really be responsible when we think about how we use these federal funds to really support families and to improve conditions and change behaviors that can, make people happier and really being able to support the family in general into what really works and helping them to just reach some of those long and short-term outcomes that we talked about earlier. So having said all of this, I just say it's a great opportunity for us to learn from the field, from us to learn from evaluation, and we look forward to see what we are going to be able to learn from this learning agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Charisse, for that overview of OFA's programs. Now we'll turn it over to Anna Solmeyer to introduce the Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education Models and Measures Project.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So as Charisse was saying, we're really interested in pursuing a learning agenda that involves collecting high-quality data from participants who are served by HMRE programs. And I think the work in this project is really relevant both for those that have grants from OFA and also for programs that are funded through other sources. So measurement is a really key piece of any learning agenda, but it's really tricky to do. We basically need to be able to take reality and people's experiences and turn that into numbers so we can quantify what we're evaluating to find out whether the program or services are really making a measurable difference in people's lives and experiences. So accurate evaluation results really hinge on using accurate measures. For example, if we want to know whether an HMRE program improved couple communication, we have to know what healthy communication looks like, and we have to have survey items or questionnaires that can capture what's really going on when couples communicate. And having high quality measurement will help us to get more accurate results from evaluation research, and in turn, this will put us in a much better position to be able to improve programs and services. So I'm sure most of the people on this webinar are aware that couples and families are complicated, and it makes it really hard to measure what's going on with them and what their relationships are like. But that also means that it's even more important to do a good job with measurement so we can have as clear a picture as possible about how programs or services make a difference in people's relationships. And so there are a lot of existing measures out there that tap into things like couple communication and emotional support or conflict management, but many of these measures were developed and tested with white, middle-income, married or engaged couples, and they may not be appropriate for populations that ACF typically serves. For example, ACF couples may be facing high economic stress, they may be part of a complex or blended family, they might not be married and may not have plans to get married, or as Charisse mentioned, they may be teens who are or are not in a relationship. So ACF serves a much more diverse population than who most of the existing measures were designed for. Next slide. So given that we don't really know if existing measures work with ACF populations, the Office of Planning, Research, and Evaluation, OPRE, funded the Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education Models and Measures Project, or 3M for short. And 3M is designed to build on our previous research to do two things. First, Child Trends identified priority target populations for the next generation of HMRE programs. And the two populations are parents in complex or blended families and 14 to 18-year-old adolescents. And Mindy is going to go into more detail about those populations in just a minute. And then second, Child Trends made recommendations for specific items and measures to assess program outcomes and impacts for these two groups. And this process involves identifying existing items that would be appropriate for the population, as well as adapting or changing some items to make them more relevant, and in some cases developing brand new items that better reflect the relationships of diverse groups of couples. So now I'll turn it over to Mindy Scott from Child Trends. She's the project director of this 3M project to tell you more about the target populations and the tools that she and her team have developed.
Great, thank you so much, Anna, and good afternoon, everybody. We're excited to be participating in today's webinar and sharing our work with everybody today. I wanted to start by giving a little bit of background about our two target populations, and we'll start with our population of adolescents ages 14 to 18. And we selected this group for a number of important reasons. First, adolescents is a key population targeted by federal HMRE programs, and as Charisse described, large numbers of youth are being served by these programs. Additionally, romantic relationships are an important aspect of adolescent lives. By age 18, 80% of teens have been in a romantic relationship. And these relationships that are experienced during adolescence can really set the stage for later romantic relationships by helping youth develop the skills they need to establish and maintain healthy relationships even as adults. These relationships also provide adolescents with the tools to create and sustain healthy relationships and contribute to overall positive development in multiple domains of life. Although many of the items that we'll present today are meant to be used to assess the quality of adolescent romantic relationships, we will also describe some items that can be asked of adolescents who are not in a current relationship or who have never been in a romantic relationship. Many of the recommended items can also be used to assess other relationships that adolescents may experience, such as close friendships, and we'll review a few specific examples of these types of items later. Our second population is parents in complex families. An increasing proportion of children have seen their biological parents separate, have lived in a single-parent household, and have seen at least one parent form a new cohabiting or marital union, and also have additional children in these new unions. These experiences can introduce economic and psychological stress in the family, which can affect a couple's relationship quality and stability, and also can limit the availability of resources to children. We focus our work on couples who have at least one child together, but also where one or both partners have children from previous relationships. We also focus on outcomes for parents who are in committed relationships, either married or cohabiting, or if not living together, in a committed romantic relationship. And we focus on these more committed couples because they are likely to experience the greatest success from an intervention focused on maintaining stable and healthy relationships. For this project, we are using the term complex family, which is a terminology used more in research on family change and family structure, but we recognize that the term blended families is more commonly used in programs and also more recognizable by parents themselves. And so for today's presentation, the terms really are interchangeable, and you'll see that in our actual measures, we use the term blended families. I'm going to review 4 different products that are listed here that we developed for the 3M project. For each population, we developed a measure spreadsheet that includes detailed information for our recommended measures, as well as a data collection tip sheet. Now, I'll focus most of the webinar on the measure spreadsheets, including what the spreadsheets are and how users can use them. The data collection tip sheets are guides for researchers who may be collecting these types of measures for adolescents or parents in complex families. The measure spreadsheets summarize recommended items assessing a range of targeted outcome domains for HMRE programs serving adolescents or parents in complex families. These spreadsheets are intended to be used by researchers, evaluators, and others when planning how to measure outcomes for HMRE programs. The spreadsheets are dynamic in nature, meaning that users can search for items based on a number of factors, including by outcome domain, by specific constructs, and prior uses of the items. Our recommendations and the development of the measure spreadsheets were informed by a number of project activities, including a review of research and evaluation evidence, input from an expert work group and additional experts in the HMRE field, the development of logic models for HMRE programs for our 2 target populations, and results from cognitive interviews with adolescents and parents in complex families, where we tested a set of items with respondents from our specific populations. Some items were drawn directly from existing sources, some were adapted to be more appropriate for our target populations, and others were newly developed for the purposes of this project. We'll present measures that can be assessed in the short term, intermediate, or long term. And we also provide options for using single items or full scales or subscales that have been tested and validated in previous research. And we provide information about the psychometric properties of these scales when available. This measurement framework illustrates the types of outcomes that we expected to be affected by an HMRE intervention and how they are interrelated. Each of the domains here represents the outcome domains for which we have identified measures, and we organize the measure spreadsheets around each of these domains. Our outcome domains are organized by 3 large categories: healthy relationship knowledge, expectations, and attitudes; behaviors and skills that relate directly to relationships, such as fidelity, shared interactions and activities, and partner communication; as well as domains that cover other anticipated outcomes, including individual well-being, more general social skills, and career and college readiness, both in adolescence and young adulthood. Like the adolescent framework, this figure illustrates the outcome domains that we identified for parents in complex families. Again, we include domains that relate to parents' knowledge, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations, along with specific components of healthy relationships. Some additional examples of these components are emotional and personal support, violence, and family processes. And again, we have other anticipated outcomes, and for parents in complex families, these include co-parenting outcomes, individual well-being, and economic well-being and stability. Now I'd like to move on to the portion of the webinar where we get to explore the measure spreadsheets through a live demonstration with sample exercises. And if you'd like to follow along on your own with the measure spreadsheets, you can access the spreadsheets on OPRE's 3M project webpage. The links are provided on this slide, and Terrence is actually going to be providing you with a link in the comments box so that you can link directly to the page that has the links to each of the products. Okay, so now we're going to focus on the measures spreadsheets themselves, and bear with me while I pull those up. Okay. The measure spreadsheets consist of several worksheets with useful information, including a background page, which provides an overview of the projects and the spreadsheet, a columns definition page, which describes the specific information provided for each measure across our outcome domains. And we'll go into many of these columns in much more detail when we look at the actual measures tabs. This page also includes an item subject definition table, which specifies who the questions are about. For example, whether an item asks for information about a respondent's general attitudes and beliefs, or about a specific relationship with a specific partner. There's also a table of contents where users can link directly to a definition for each outcome domain and the full set of recommended measures for that domain. And you'll see on the bottom that there are separate tabs for each of the outcome domains that we included in our measures framework. We've also provided a references tab, which includes the full sources, full citations for all of the sources that we use in our work. So I just want to note that there are some differences between the two spreadsheets for adolescents and parents in complex families, and there are some differences based on some unique aspects of information that we presented for each population, and I'll highlight some of those differences in our examples. Okay, so our first example from the adolescence measures we'll look at the domain of healthy relationship knowledge, expectations, and attitudes. And here in the Here in the domain definition tab, you can see that the domain refers to an individual's knowledge, expectations, attitudes, and beliefs about marriage and relationships. We include items assessing both healthy and unhealthy relationships, as well as perceptions on what makes a relationship last and the benefits of a healthy relationship. Examples of the types of constructs in this domain include attitudes about a healthy relationship, relationship marriage expectations, and general relationship attitudes. Now, if you go one tab over to the domain specified for relationship knowledge, expectations, and attitudes, in here, you'll see a variety of measures that cover many constructs that fit within this domain. For this demonstration, though, I want to highlight a few measures in particular. And specifically, we're interested in looking at items on teens' general attitudes about relationships. So to filter the spreadsheet to look just at those items, I'm going to go to the construct column, which is highlighted here in green, and apply a filter so that I only see items in this specific construct. So I look here for the general relationship attitudes construct, and I select that. And now the sheet will only show the items from this specific construct. I want to look specifically at 3 items to the bottom of the page. You'll see that these items were newly developed for the project, and they were cognitively tested with adolescents. We prioritize the newly developed items for our cognitive testing and feel that the tested items represent our best recommendations for measuring these constructs with the target populations. The items highlighted here focus on respondents' attitudes about how avoiding unhealthy romantic relationships could help teens in general. We found through the cognitive interviews that adolescents were more comfortable answering questions about what they thought about teen relationships more generally, rather than answering all questions about themselves. So here we use teens instead of you in the examples, or in the questions. And for example, an item is avoiding bad romantic relationships as a teenager will help teens achieve their goals in life, have better lives, and have healthy romantic relationships as adults. Okay. I'm now going to return to the table of contents to review the full list of domains again, and there's a tab on the top of each measures tab. There's a link to return to the table of contents. So now I want to review items in the emotional and personal support domain. So let's click on the definition link, and that will take us right to the definitions tab. This domain refers to elements of a relationship like respect, trust, love, and concern for partners. Specific constructs identified for this domain include concern for partner well-being, partner support, respectful communication, and trust and honesty. I'm going to go to the tab that has all of the measures that we developed or identified for emotional and personal support. And I want to learn more here about how I could measure respectful communication. So I'm going to go back to the construct column on this tab and filter for that specific construct, respectful communication. Okay, so now the page will show just the items from this specific construct. And we're going to scroll down to a few specific items. Here the items ask, please indicate how often the following things happen with your boyfriend or girlfriend. My boyfriend or girlfriend puts down my physical appearance or how I look. tries to make me look bad, and insults or criticizes my ideas. Now, these items are a good example of an approach that we took to make all items appropriate for heterosexual and same-sex relationships. So all items will refer to boyfriend/girlfriend. For example, my boyfriend or girlfriend insults or criticizes my ideas. As you can see in column H, which is highlighted in purple, these items were cognitively tested with adolescents. And I also want to draw your attention to column G, the X's that are in column G. And this is a column that refers to items that we recommend could be revised to ask about other close relationships, such as relationships with a best friend. The revised items could be used if a teen is not in a current romantic relationship or has never experienced a romantic relationship. This is an example of a column that we did not include in the spreadsheet for parents in complex families. As an example, the items about respectful communication could be revised to ask, please indicate how often the following things happen with your best friend. My best friend puts down my physical appearance or how I look, tries to make me look bad, and insults or criticizes my ideas. Okay, so now we're going to turn to a couple of examples from the measure spreadsheets for parents in complex families. First, I want to look at measures included in a domain that we've called co-parenting relationships with previous partners. So here I'm at the Table of Contents tab, and I'll click on the definition for this domain. This is a new domain that we identified for this particular population, given that parents who have children from previous relationships may still need to navigate those relationships at the same time that they are co-parenting with their current partner. We hypothesize that the co-parenting skills that parents learn through HMRE programs could be applied across these relationships. Thus, this outcome domain focuses on the ongoing relationships with previous partners related to raising children together. These relationships may also exist with other caregivers, such as family members that may be helping parents care for their children. This domain includes constructs such as attitudes about a co-parent's involvement and care for children, or measures of gatekeeping. So for this domain, a user may be interested in measuring conflict between co-parents about raising children. To find items that may measure this, we first need to navigate to the specific tab for this domain. And we can either tab over to that worksheet from the bottom, like we've been doing, but we can also go back to the Table of Contents tab and click on the Measures link for this domain. And that will take us right to the spreadsheet that has all of the measures for co-parenting with previous partners. Once you reach the tab, you can filter by construct to look specifically at co-parenting conflict. So now we've narrowed down the spreadsheet to just look at these specific items. And after filtering, you'll see that the first several items highlighted here in red are part of a 5-item scale, which is a scale of disagreements about child rearing. And this scale was used in the Supporting Healthy Marriage evaluation, which did consist of some step families who would fit into our definition of complex families. Information about the previous source and its use in a scale can be found in column H, here in purple. And here is where we provide information about the psychometric properties for the original scale. We did adapt these items based on our cognitive interviews, and this information is noted in column B, highlighted in blue, where we provide information about whether the items are existing, adapted, or new. For each of these items, respondents are asked to report how often they and their previous partner or other co-parent disagree about things like setting rules for or disciplining children, the activities that children participate in, and how you spend money on your children. For our last example, we'll return to the Table of Contents and review the Relationship and Marriage Attitudes and Expectations domain. This domain refers to an individual's attitudes, beliefs and expectations about relationships and marriage in general, and attitudes about their own relationships, and includes constructs like attitudes about remarriage and stepfamilies, changes in relationship expectations and perceptions, and gender roles and attitudes. So now we'll look at the specific measures in this domain. And we'll want to look at the attitudes about remarriage and stepfamilies construct. And again, I'm going to filter the page and look at attitudes about remarriage and stepfamilies. This construct includes items that have been adapted, but also some existing items and some newly developed items. And again, you can see that information in column B, highlighted in blue. Or purple. And let's look at a couple examples of specific items from this construct. Rows 23 and 24 are highlighted in blue. These items are from the remarriage belief inventory. And the first item asks, thinking about blended families in general, please mark the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statement. Step-parents should assume authority over the children soon after the new family forms. Another item that we drew from the remarriage belief inventory and then adapted is adjustment to living in a blended family should occur quickly. And just looking across the rows for these two items, some of the information that you can gather, you can see that these items reflect a respondent's own attitudes, beliefs, and expectations. Some of the items were cognitively tested, shown in column G. And we provide information about the original source for the items and notes about any adaptations in the notes column, which is highlighted here in red. I hope you found these few exercises helpful. We wanted to provide just a few examples of the types of outcome measures that we identified through the project and highlight the many features of these measure spreadsheets. And we hope that these will serve as useful tools for your own work in the future. Okay, we're going to jump back to the slides now. Okay, my apologies. Okay, here we are. So we wanted to just quickly also show you the data collection tip sheets that we developed. And these are two companion products for the measure spreadsheets. These tip sheets provide guidance on how to collect outcomes data from adolescents and parents in complex families. Here we show the cover page for the tip sheet for adolescents. And next we show the cover page for the tip sheet for complex families. And across both of these tip sheets, we address the following questions. First, what are the intervention's goals and target populations? We provide guidance about who should answer the questions, who should the questions be about, how should the data be collected, and specific to complex families, guidance on how family should be defined for a program's particular needs and data collection purposes. Okay, before we wrap up and get to some questions, I wanted to just highlight a couple of related OPRE projects drawn from their ongoing work with healthy marriage programs, including the Youth Education and Relationship Services Project, which Child Trends is leading. And this project seeks to learn more about the youth services offered by OFA Healthy Marriage grantees to help inform efforts to improve HMRE programs for youth. The project has three key objectives. First, to describe the organizations implementing HMRE programs for youth and the youth served by these programs. We also aim to assess the alignment of HMRE programs for youth with best practices in the field and to identify promising approaches used by grantees to better serve youth in HMRE programs. A second project, the Strengthening Relationship Education and Marriage Services Project, or STREAMS, is a rigorous multi-site study that will be conducted with a small set of OFA Healthy Marriage grantees from the 2015 cohort. And youth are one of the populations of interest for this project. All right, I'm going to pass things back to Chris Moore, who's going to help moderate our Q&A session.
Thank you, Mindy. And we have questions coming in, but I want to encourage people to continue to send questions in. We can answer as many as we can right now and hopefully provide some answers afterward as well. First question is, are the questions in the surveys mandatory? Do people have to use them?
So the answer is no. These are recommended measures that are based on our review of research and evaluation and previous items that have been used, but these items really represent our best recommendations for assessing outcomes for HMRE programs for adolescents or parents in complex families. They are not required, but we hope will be a useful tool for improving measurement of outcomes for those two populations.
Okay, great. Another question is there a way to extract selected items from the Excel spreadsheets to make a new questionnaire?
Yes, definitely. So the nice thing about these spreadsheets is you can sort of pull what items you want for your own programs, your own purposes. Each program has specific outcomes, specific objectives, and we recognize that users will need to tailor some items and sort of tailor the set of items that they extract from the spreadsheets. And I think the simplest thing to do would be you can easily copy and paste the items and insert them into an existing survey or organize them as you see fit and as would benefit your program and evaluation the most.
Great. This question is whether there were any new constructs that emerged from the initial measures review.
Yes, we, after a scan of existing measures and constructs, we thought more about where some gaps might be and developed some new constructs. And one that we wanted to highlight is a construct of concern for partner well-being, and this is in both adolescents and complex families. And this really gets at concern for a partner sort of beyond the relationship. So concern for their general well-being, responsibility for a partner's feelings of well-being and their success. So that's one example.
Great. Well, I like this question. It says, are you doing this kind of superb analysis for child outcome measures?
Well, for this project, no, we did not focus on child outcome measures. We recognize that one of the ultimate goals for the Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education programs is to improve child well-being, but decided to really focus our efforts on focusing on outcomes first for the parents, as a way to sort of prioritize and keep our focus very much on the parents at this point.
Okay. What outcome domains would you say are the most different from what was existing in prior studies?
Sure, I think that's a good question. Concern for partner well-being is an example of outcomes that are different, and we did not find many items that existed for that. And then the outcome domain of the one that we reviewed of co-parenting relationships with previous partners or other caregivers, a lot of those items exist and have been used for couples who are co-parenting together and are in a relationship, but specifying that as a separate outcome domain, I think, is a unique contribution to this work.
A kind of follow-up sort of question is, what items are unique in the economic and individual well-being domains? These measures are generally included in outcome evaluations. Do they need to be refined?
We did include measures that have been used commonly in other evaluations to assess economic stability, but we did add some new items that were more tailored to our specific population. So, for example, financial difficulties at the individual level, and that may be due to having children from previous relationships or stepchildren. So thinking specifically about parents who have children from previous relationships that may have financial challenges due to that.
Okay. So two kind of related questions. One is, are these adolescents or parents in complex family measures appropriate for diverse populations? And can the adolescent items be used for younger ages, like 12-year-olds?
Yes, we definitely made it a priority to have the items be appropriate for diverse populations, including low-income families, unmarried and married couples, LGBT couples, same-sex relationships, and for adolescents, we focus on 14 to 18-year-olds for a few different reasons. One, because that is who is being served by healthy marriage programs, primarily with programs being delivered in high schools. And then also thinking about sort of the developmental stages of teens and focusing on 14 to 18-year-olds who may have more experience in relationships, and especially among the older youth who may already be in romantic relationships. I think a lot of these items that are more about general social skills, though, could be used for younger teens and younger adolescents or younger children age 12. Also, as we saw, the measures that we developed or included that we marked could be used for general relationships, I think could also be appropriate for younger children that could be asked about a friend or a parent.
Okay. So here's a question about a very specific item, which is thinking about the times when your youngest child has done something wrong. How often do you hit, spank, grab, or use physical punishment with your child? This question assumes that the parent does that without even answering the question. So do you have a feeling about that particular item?
I have to look back, but we're not trying to assume that the parent does that, and we have response categories that allow the parent to say never. So we can assess whether that ever happens or parents never do those things. And these items are we drew from use in previous evaluations, and they're sort of more standard ways to assess different discipline styles. And this contract, for example, is harsh discipline, but we also have items that are more about positive discipline and other more positive ways to address behavior problems with children.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And how much overlap across items is there between outcome domains?
There is some overlap. Each item was sort of placed in its initial kind of priority domain, but we did work to include items that we felt did cross domains. Those are included in both domains. So, for example, something around an item that's around emotional support that is about listening to your partner's problems, discussion of their problems, we included in communication and emotional and personal support. So there is some overlap, and we've identified when items do overlap across domains.
You mentioned that there are scales and individual items that could be used. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. We wanted to the extent possible, provide information when items have been combined into tested and validated scales, and we provided the psychometric properties for those scales and the sources so that people can look back to the original sources and see the full set of items that are included in that. However, we show all of the items as separate items as well, and so there's sort of there's more options and more flexibility for using single items versus a scale. And some of this has to do, again, with programs' needs, resources. Sometimes a program may want to include have a long instrument that has all of the items, but there are other times where single items are more efficient, and there may not be time to collect a lot of information from a lot of measures.
Like if it's a study on a different subject, but they want to have something in here.
Yes, exactly. If it's not quite your priority outcome, but you want something that can measure something quickly.
So here's another question that relates a little bit to one of the earlier questions. It's a how question. How should program staff or evaluators put together items in an evaluation instrument?
Great, and I think this, we can talk a little bit more about the first question about how you can take these items and paste them together to create a survey. And that's the value of these spreadsheets, that you can really pick and choose the domains, the constructs, and the items within those constructs that work best for your programs and will best assess your program-specific goals and objectives. And again, we provided options for using full scales that have been used in previous work or single items.
Okay, one question, a person says, I expected to see more parenting items. Can you explain why this is not a larger section?
Sure, and that's a good question, and we did think a lot about how large to make this section and how many items to present, and we started with a much larger set of items. But really, through our work with experts and really thinking again about priorities for this set of measures, kind of included items that were were most relevant for healthy marriage programs, but did not expand the set of items that you may collect more detailed information from a parenting program, for example, but sort of prioritize the relationship outcomes over some of the other anticipated outcome domains like parenting.
Okay. Then again, one person wants to know, are there any other federal efforts out of ACAF that explore healthy marriage relationship education programs for either of these populations?
Yes, and so the YEARS program that I mentioned is specifically focused on adolescents, where Child Trends will be working with the Office of Planning, Research, and Evaluation to look more closely at the OFA healthy marriage programs that are specifically serving youth, and we're looking at ages 14 to 24 in that work, and also the Streams project, the multi-site random assignment evaluation that will be conducted with, again, youth as a specific population.
At this point, I have one more question, so if you have a question to submit, please do it now. I'm going to ask Mindy, what is different about these measures compared to the previous existing measures for either of these populations? What's new and different?
Well, I think we really worked hard to draw upon what the good work that has already been done, and so there are a lot of items that have been used in previous research and evaluation, but our goal was to kind of take these items and measures to the next step, and so through our cognitive testing with adolescents and complex families, we were able to further adapt and tailor the measures so that they are more appropriate and for the target populations and work better for the populations. And as we've been discussing a little bit, we work to identify where there may have been some gaps in the types of outcomes being assessed for the two populations. And so thinking about parents and complex families, again, that domain of constructs of concern for partner well-being that may get at information about the dynamics in a relationship that may not have, that are important and an important aspect of the healthy marriage programming, but may not have been measured in the past.
Okay. A question related to the diverse populations for which these are appropriate is a question about cognitive testing. Could you say a little bit more about the process of cognitive testing these items?
Yes, sure. So particularly for the newly developed items, and those were newly developed when we felt that there weren't items that were in existence that capture the constructs that we wanted to capture. We recruited adolescents ages 14 to 18 and parents in complex families and asked them to complete a series of those questions, and then we gave them some time to fill out the items, and then we just talked with them and asked them, did this question make sense? Were the response categories, was it hard to pick a response category? Tell us what you were thinking when you answered those questions, and that really helped us get a better sense of whether the question itself was capturing the information that we hoped it would capture, whether there were words or kind of whether the structure of the item was not clear or confusing, and the response categories too, kind of getting a sense of how hard or easy it would be to answer those questions.
Mm-hmm. So a related question just came in. How do these measures take into account cultural differences?
We, again, in our review of measures, we've prioritized measures that have been used in previous work with diverse populations and did strive in our cognitive interviews to have a diverse sample. So we tested items with minority, adolescents, and parents in complex families. We tested the items with parents that were from different income levels, that were in different relationships, so married and unmarried, and
Latino.
Yep, and so we did speak to African American, white, and Latino adolescents and parents in complex families.
Great, thank you. Well, we would like to thank you all for participating in this webinar and for sharing your questions with us. We hope that you will find these products to be a resource when you're conducting evaluations for HMRE programming, serving adolescents or parents in complex families, or for other research projects that you may be engaged in. There are some resources shown on this last slide. And again, we thank you very much for your attendance.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.